Hey, 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 welcome back, bonnet heads, bonnet head adjacent people who aspire to be bonnet heads. You're all welcome. This is an inclusive place. I'm Pamela Bob, creator of Living on a Prairie, and your host. And I am here today with our one and only prairie bitch, Allison Arngrim, and our wonderful, there she is, the one and only. Pose. Vogue it, girl. And our one and only book-selling man, our hashtag imaginary boyfriend. Here he is, folks, Dean Butler. Oh, you got a whistle this week.
Nice.
I support that.
That's all. That's good, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah, he really amped it up. How are you guys doing?
Well, good. You know, Allison and I had a nice week last week with the introduction of Prairie Man. I did an event in Simi Valley on the 25th, the release day, and we did it in Simi Valley because that's the home of Little House and where we did our 50th anniversary celebration. But on Thursday night, we went to Barnes & Noble at the Grove, sort of a mecca spot for book signings.
It's the place. I did mine there. Melissa Gilbert did it. That's where you go. Yeah. You go to Barnes & Noble's in the Grove if you're in LA. That's the thing.
Third floor in that open area. We had a great time. In a pretty good crowd. I mean, we had a nice crowd. We sold it out.
All the chairs were full. They sold all of the places to sit. There were people arriving, and there's like, I'm sorry, there's nowhere to sit. You will have to stand.
But then what happened before just as we're ready to sign, what happened?
This huge thing happens, and Harlan has press, and I get interviewed, and he gets interviewed, and then we sit down, and I ask him questions, and they go wild, and then they ask him questions, and they go wild. This is great. Okay, now he's going to sign. He sits down, and he gets his pen in his hand, and they all line up with their books, and it's an enormous fire alarm with flashing lights, the whole bed, the entire barn was a fire alarm. And the nice lady comes over and goes, well, it may be false. Okay, no, that keeps going. Yeah, we have to evacuate the fire marshals here. We have to all leave.
This was just an inopportune piece of timing. This felt like this is really a bad sign. But the woman, Rachel, who runs the special events at Barnes & Noble, said, no, you're just too hot to handle. So it's just like, so they push people out. And
the fire guy with the hat was going, no, you do actually have to go out. You have to go out. We're like, yes, it's not on fire right now, but you have to go out. And so we had to go out the little doors, and we went downstairs, and then it went, meow.
And they came back. And we signed, and we signed, and we signed. And then as we were about 3/4 of the way through, Someone at the AMC theater or at the AMC.
They think it was the movie theater. The movie theater. They think it's the movie theater next door.
Had a problem where someone is alarm happy at the movie theater.
Either somebody was smoking in the bathroom.
It's very prairie of you for that to happen. You think you have a solid crop? Boom! A tornado comes
Hailstorm.
in.
Hailstorm.
Very good, Pamela.
Yeah, it does. But they did not leave. The look on his face.
I was a little horrified.
They're all leaving. I said, they're not going to leave. Those people did you see them? They're not going anywhere. And we get down there to evacuate, and they're all like lined up in front of the glass doors, clutching their books, staring at us. Like,
open.
Jesus, that's actually a very scary image.
And they all came back in. Nobody left.
Yeah, nobody left.
They all came
so it was all good. And then on the Sunday,
they're late.
On the Sunday, I went through 4.5 hours of traffic to get to San Diego to sit at the American Library Association convention and meet 18,000 librarians from all over the country who are looking to decide what they're going to put in their libraries. And it was great. I had no idea there were so many television fans among those who love books. Just no idea.
Oh, yeah. And librarians, love the Little House books. And I know they love my book and Melissa's book. They'll love your book. You'll be a library staple.
I've been telling people if you read the book, you need to go to Goodreads and give it a nice rating. I think last week, I was sort of bouncing around 50, 60 ratings after the second or third day. I go and look at yours. You have 17,000 ratings on Goodreads.
Because I check my Amazon. You got to get the good Amazon reviews on there too, because people do go to Amazon to buy your book and they look to see how many stars. Okay, I have 5, and they look, and I forgot how many thousand reviews I have, but
Okay. Listen, Everyone knows that you are sensational. Pamela, we have someone sensational,
so sensational.
in the wings today.
Yes.
What do we know here?
Well, our guest today is a very smart guy who loves books, television, and theater too. He's an author, a journalist, a historian, and television correspondent. His career astounds me. I don't get how it happened, but we'll talk to him about it. First, though, let me say this is from the studios of UBN Go in Burbank, California, me in New York City. This is Little House 50th Anniversary Podcast. Welcome. There it is. The beautiful music. All right. Well, we usually do a vamp here, but we're just gonna go.
Yeah.
We're just gonna go right in and bring our guest.
Let's bring him in.
Bring him on.
Okay, here
Definitely.
are some fun facts. He's a graduate of Harvard. He was the president of Harvard's Hasty Pudding Theatricals, the infamous Hasty Pudding Theatricals. Yes.
He played Seymour in a Harvard production of Little Shop
Love
of
this
Horrors.
guy.
I love that show.
That also featured current Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. I've seen pictures. There they are.
Best
I've seen
fun
pictures.
fact
That's
ever.
awesome. I think that's very, very cool.
That's
and
crazy.
he's worked on Broadway too, and we have a director in common.
Yeah, and friends in common too.
Yeah.
He's had an amazing career on television where he is currently a correspondent on CBS's Sunday Morning, one of my personal favorite shows. And he's also the author of Mobituaries, also an awesome podcast of the same name. And his most current book, Roctogenarians, published by Simon and Schuster, celebrates individuals who achieved significant milestones later in life.
Oh, we wouldn't know anything about that, would we? Yes, that would be. Hello, we know a lot about that.
He is
Yeah.
deeply appreciated for his ability to entertain and educate simultaneously, using his unique perspective to shed light on overlooked stories and historical figures. Oh, and by the way, he's a bonnet head. We might test his knowledge later on.
Oh,
in the
we're
program.
definitely going to
Please.
test his
Oh,
knowledge.
There
okay.
will be a quiz.
Yeah.
Please, everyone, let's welcome Mo Rocca.
There he is in a very tight close-up.
Hi. No, we like the tight close-up. It's like you're here with us.
Well, first of all, I mean, that introduction, I mean, holy smokes. But, you know, I don't set off alarms just by walking into a Barnes & Noble. So I'm not sure. Hopefully I rate in this crowd. And the association, if you've got them, if you've captured them, you're home free. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm because of your skills and experience, I'm with writing and books, I'm going to accept that. And obviously, Allison, with 17,000 positive ratings, 5-point ratings on Goodreads, knows as well. But thank you, Mo, for that. I remember the first time I saw you. I was really, unlike Pamela and Allison, who worked with you.
She's been a fan for years.
Well, actually, Allison, talk about the 70s. Because let's start in order here.
There was this fabulous thing that happened in the 90s, actually.
In the 90s?
I got these calls of, come do this. Where are they now? Where are they now? Or as my friend Howie said, my God, don't they know where you are by now? You've done everywhere. Are they now? She's still here. And they had this thing called I Love the 70s. And I was like, well, that's me. And they said, come in, be interviewed. You're a thing of the 70s. Yes, I am. And they interviewed me. And then they said, hey, do you want to come back and be like a bumper co-host, ask people questions, and do wacky stuff like that whole thing, makeup, where I came on when they talked about anyone who was old. It was hysterical. And so I was queen of I Love the 70s, and it was great. I got to see everybody, and then there was a Where Are They Now one that they had me come back 2 times. It was great.
And you did this with Mo.
And you were there. Yes, you were awesome. Did you do the Fashion Police Us magazine? I'm trying to remember.
I did not.
Everyone did that year.
I did not. I love the 70s. I love the 80s. I love the 90s. And then they went back and did sort of, subsequent volumes of them. And my understanding is that I Love the 80s were, kind of a big hit. And of course, the Little House are still going in the 80s.
So
I Love the 70s didn't do quite as well because I think like the VH1 audience viewed that as sort of ancient history. They might as well have been studying like the ancient Romans.
Or were trying to pretend they were too young to remember that.
I loved it. I remember watching both of you on that show. well before I knew you, Allison, being like, oh my God, Nellie.
But what I want to know is, did you really love the 70s, 80s, and 90s? I mean,
I loved the 70s and the 80s. And what I really loved about those shows is all those, just thousands, just tens of thousands of hours I spent watching all these TV shows. Finally, I could put it to use. I mean, all that I knew about different strokes, Webster, Punky Brewster,
yes,
and of orphan-centered sitcoms. I suddenly had a repository for all of this knowledge.
Yes. I never realized they are all orphan-centered sitcoms. That's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is interesting. The first time I saw you was, I think, in 2021 when you did this wonderful package with Melissa Gilbert in the Catskills for CBS Sunday Morning. Really nice package with her. I had never seen her looking so bohemian.
There's out in the garden with the chickens.
The chickens and the crops. No, she's out there with the... Yeah, but I mean, she looks like some 60s hippie peasant in this package.
In the good way. Yeah,
no,
it's a thing. It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a look. But that was a really nice package, Mo. And I you gave her. It was obviously pandemic, set around the pandemic, and we're talking about why Little House. You're talking about why Little House had a resurgence during that time. It's always been there, but the pandemic was a very good time for Little House, as much as the pandemic was not a great time for everybody.
For anything else ever.
Yeah. How did that interview come to be?
Well, it came to be because I had read an item in the newspaper that the ratings for Little House, which has, as you all know, has never been off the air since the first. It's always been somewhere, that they skyrocketed during the pandemic. And it seemed like the perfect opportunity to go and talk to somebody that I wanted to talk to Melissa Gilbert. So we went up there, and she was very it did appear to be very Earth Mother. I mean, if she had a sign-up sheet for a new religion that day, I would have signed right up, because it had
solid cult leader.
And it was really great just having a talk with her about why she felt the show had come back in such a strong way while people were flocking to it. And I didn't know that the show was I hadn't recognized that the show was born out of a turbulent time with the energy crisis and Watergate.
That's right.
But my biggest takeaway is that David Rose, who wrote the wonderful theme song, also wrote the iconic music for The Stripper.
Yes. And we used it.
Yes.
And we used it in an episode.
Did you really?
Should we put that on the quiz?
He's too late now. You've tipped it. But yeah, David snuck The Stripper into an episode called what? Here Come the Brides?
Here Come the Brides.
All right. Tell Mo that story. I mean, he'll like that.
When I married the pig farmer, when I eloped with the lovely son of a pig farmer, Luke. And we're in the hotel, and Mrs. Olsen in hot pursuit with the shotgun. Nels make her a widow. That great moment. But we're
another quiz.
Taking our clothes off, and we're throwing things over the clothing rack. And I'm getting undressed, and the dress is going over the screen, and then the petticoats goes. And all of a sudden, the music goes da 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 da, and they just start working in The Stripper into the theme. It's hysterical.
It's because David was, Mo, and you're a musical person. I've long believed that David Rose was a central figure in the success of Little House.
Absolutely.
That underscore that, and those beautiful themes that he wrote informed audiences of an emotional life that was deep and rich and powerful, and he gave it all of that. There had been a concept about doing it with a string bass and a banjo and a mandolin, and David said, no. Little House needs to be Gone with the Wind. I want people to know that the emotional life is huge.
Oh, he's part of why people cried so much. You'd have a shilling at that
music credits.
Yeah. What's really? Go ahead.
I was going to ask about that in the opening credits. I'm sure you've heard many versions of this, but years ago I was sent a dance remix version of it.
Yes, I've heard it.
So I thought it was...
That was the one that was used in the opening of Prairie Okie, the musical parody, alias Almond Grove. Yes,
fun.
Yes. Love it so much.
One of the cool things about because David had done so much work, that theme, the core of that theme was a cue that he'd written for Bonanza for an episode called Cattle Drive.
With the cow.
And he had basically written that theme, and somehow, as composers are, with melodies playing in their heads when he was sitting down to decide what the opening theme for Little House was going to be.
Wow.
This composition from Bonanza came back to him.
Wow.
And did Michael Landon bring David Rose
totally.
from Bonanza?
Oh, yes.
And everybody else he could fit in the car.
Else, too.
Yeah, they all came. He said, I'm doing another show. They went, okay. And just like walked over. I mean, the whole crew.
Yeah.
Allison, can I ask you, Allison, was it really, like Melissa said, being on that show, like being in a perpetual summer camp where you were also being able to put on costumes? But I mean, she really meant it, that it was just a really wonderful way to get in.
Fantastic. I mean, it was summer camp and a little like being in Army boot camp as well, because we would go there so early in the morning and we worked very, very hard. But it was this, we were so lucky, when you're like, there's only 1 or 2 kids on a TV show, it's really difficult for the child actors and their social development. But we had 30 freaking kids in the school. They were there all the time. So we had our own group. And we did have so much fun making that show. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, we worked our butts off till we dropped, but we had like so much fun that it was totally worth it.
And all of the kids on that show, all of them across the board say how well protected they were and how safe they were on that set. They all say that.
I'm curious, Mo, how did you come to Little House? What was the
Yeah, and in your book, hold on, I'm plugging it. Hold on.
Okay.
Here it is.
So there.
In your wonderful book.
Okay.
In your Laura Ingalls Wilder chapter, you do talk about the book people and the TV people, and that there is a definite difference in the fan base between the two, or then they're the people that I call bi. They're bi. They're both book and TV. So what are you? Are you a book person, a TV person, or are you bi?
I am both. I'm Prairie.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Pan Prairie.
And now, mind you, there's the history people who hate everybody because they say the timelines were changed in the books and too many things were made up in the books. So the book people are mad at the show, and then the history people are mad at the books. And
So I love this series, and I think part of it is, and I suspect that this is not uncommon. My mother's an immigrant from Colombia, and so she was especially captured by this show. She was completely riveted and loved this show. And so it was I think the Carol Burnett show, there were a few shows that we watched as a family. I can't say that we all together watched Little House, but it's certainly something that I watched with my mother. And I just loved it. And I think that Dean, what you were saying about the music, I recognized early on that there was something so sort of epic about this, and that kind of pulled you in. It might as well have been CinemaScope on our
Yes. Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure that's what led me to the book. So I remember reading certainly the first 2, right? So Little House in the Big Woods, and then I'm forgetting the title.
Farmer Boy. Farmer Boy is the second one.
Oh, yes, of course, Farmer Boy. Right. So probably 3 or 4 of the 8 that she wrote. And what can I say? I think that's how it started. One of the things I remember, and I feel like I might be misremembering this because I brought this up to other bonnet heads and they kind of look at me blankly, but at least once, but I thought more than once, an ice bath was a remedy for fever.
Yeah.
I remember
I had one,
fascinated but scared by this idea. Thinking, oh my God, if I ever got a really high fever, I can't, I'm such a wuss about cold water. How would I even survive an ice bath? But you had to take an ice bath at least once, right?
Yes, I did not misremember. Yeah. He did it. He did it.
I did have it, and it was not glycerin, clear glycerin. It was ice, look, it wasn't for any long periods of time. It was like 10 minutes at a time. But it made me think about the wonderful scene, and this is the only time you'll hear me compare myself to Marlon Brando. but at the end of Mutiny on the Bounty, as Fletcher Christian is burned to death and he's dying, what he did to play that scene was sit on a huge block of ice.
My God.
To get to be very cold and shiver, which of course, when you are burned, you are cold. You feel cold.
Dying.
So this was this. You play in a world of opposites. High fevers are wonderfully manifest by being freezing. So it was a very effective way to play that moment, and I did steal that from Marlon Brando. So when the ice came out, I said, "Well, I'm in a good spot here. This is going to work for me."
How long? I mean, yeah, you had intervals, that you had breaks, but how long total?
Yeah, no, I mean,
thing?
half an hour to 45 minutes in and out of it. But it was all good. It was all good. It was all.
Mo, you had fear of being in an ice bath. I had fear of waking up being spontaneously blind. That was my fear.
Right?
Yeah. Like waking up one morning. Yeah.
And I have an Almanzo related question, which is that somebody has told me, somebody said to me, I think it was over social media, to make sure that the pronunciation.
Oh, dear Lord. Lord,
we're going to bring this up.
Because I think I misstepped in the audiobook recording of my book.
You did. You did.
For shame.
You did. But, I look at, like Cole Porter would look at it, tomato, potato, almanzo. It's all the same thing.
You say Almanzo, I say Almanzo. Almanzo.
Yeah, I always blame Lucy Lee Flippin, who played my sister Eliza Jane. She was the first person to say the name on camera. Of course, it was not her fault, but how we missed this, I'm not quite sure. It was our first day. We weren't going to question anything when this was done. So, and when the letters started to come, and there were lots of letters, I was not going to be walking into Michael Landon's office with a handful of letters saying, "Hey, we're mispronouncing this name."
Yeah.
That was just not going to be a high percentage choice on my part, as I had learned early on. You just didn't question things.
I will say that Lucy deserves thanks, because I think that Almanzo is much more pleasing to the ear than
It is, and that's what she says about it too. It's so much nicer on the ear.
And Nellie, I had one moment in that episode. I remember when I first, and she's calling him Manly, and I'm going, Manly? Almanzo, Manly. Would it be
Yeah.
Then it would be Monley.
Pleasure.
Unless, of course,
Exactly.
his name is, oh God, no, don't go there. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. And then I put it out of my mind because I realized,
You can be forgiven, Mo, on that one.
Mo,
It wasn't
here's my
until-
philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my philosophy is for the books and the history, it's Almanzo. For the TV show, we're allowed to call him Almanzo.
Perfect.
That's the difference. That's how we differentiate.
Damo. There.
Or is it? Yeah, or Zeldano.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Zeldano,
There you
Zeldano,
go.
Almanzi.
I stick to this as being a very important happy accident. Just like when Clara Peller, who was given the line for her famous Where's the Beef ad, her line was supposed to be, "Where's all the beef?" But because of her emphysema, she could only get out, "Where's the beef?" And I think we all know that "Where's all the beef" would never become.
Never. I love that story in your book. That's a great story.
Oh my God,
yes, that is in his book, people.
Yeah, no. How did this idea come together? What made you think of this Roctogenarian idea?
Well, I mean, old people are my jam.
Thank you.
A really long time. For 17 years on CBS Sunday Morning, I had a cooking show where I went around the country interviewing grandmothers and grandfathers in their kitchens.
Yeah.
They just had better stories, but the reason I'm drawn to them, and it's aspirational for me, is I have found that the older people get, the less they care about what other people think of them.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they're unfettered. They can act. They're not crowdsourcing who they are, or their opinions. And it's no surprise then that so many end up accomplishing great things late in life. And so my co-author, Jonathan Greenberg, and I thought this will be a really great counterpoint to ageism, which is real, which is definitely real. Like the idea that you should just sort of hang it up in the last third of your life, like clear the decks, make way, Yeah.
Well, yeah, with our youth obsessed. I mean, it gives us all hope that as the clock keeps marching on, that that we have a shot to do something special as we get into our 60s, 70s, and beyond, that there are good things that are possible. And that's a really nice message.
But that's true. I like what you said about not crowdsourcing who you are. Because, I mean, in show business, you're always, social media and polling, getting opinion. But There is a thing when you're young, I don't know, I mean, guys too, but especially actresses in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. What are they thinking? How do I look? And what should I wear? And should I have this hair? And it's constant. It's just insane. And when you get old, you go, I don't care anymore. And boy, that's massively freeing. So, yeah, that would make sense. You'd be able to write the book or do the show or the thing you wanted to do. I know my act sure got better after 40. Damn.
I remember when I turned 40, Allison, you were like, this is just the beginning, baby. Like, this is it. It starts now.
True.
That was a while ago, but
Well, yeah, and as you all know, I mean, Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't get her first Little House book published until she was 65. I mean, and her life after those prairie years was really, really, really difficult. So it's an extraordinary story that she wrote the first of 8 of these books, when she was 65.
A completely different life after that. Just earth-shattering.
No question.
A different world.
No question.
All right. Well, coming up, we're going to take a break. But coming up, Mo's career has been dedicated to words, humor, and history. And maybe we'll talk about a love of the stage a little bit, and then television, and a little more Little House. So stay tuned.
Okay.
When you visit Simi Valley, California, you are stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents, explore beautiful wildflowers, hike through iconic Hollywood locations, and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout the summer, take the Little House 50th Anniversary bus tour at Big Sky Movie Ranch. It's less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios. Simi Valley has small-town charm with a big-time history. Go to visitsimiValley.com for more information.
We also want to thank Alexander GMC of Simi Valley, Golden State Water Company, Marketingscape, Strathern Historical Society, and WM, formerly Waste Management, and Vista at Simi. By the way, just so you know, just to confirm what Allison said in the little promo, Little House 50th Anniversary bus tours are continuing on July 20th, August 3rd, and September 14th. Go to simivalleychamber.org, select Little House 50th Anniversary, and then bus tours to get your tickets. It's really fun. It's hot, but it's fun.
It's so hot. I might do the third.
Good to know. Let's do a bus tour with, Nellie doing it. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are here with the eclectically talented Mo Rocca. Okay, Mo, I have a few quick questions for you. Are you ready?
Are you a true bonnethead? Yes.
Little House related questions. TV Little House related questions. Here we go. Who had it worse, Mary or Albert?
Mary.
Like it. Are you Team Adam or Team Manly?
Team
Manly. You don't
Great answer.
just because he's
Great answer.
Isaiah Edwards era or Jonathan Garvey era?
Isaiah Edwards era.
Nice. Who was worse, Nellie or Nancy?
I keep hearing Eartha Kitt saying, I want to be evil. Great song.
The song that played in my head while we're doing.
Of course, Nellie was, my God, so formative for so many people. The glee she took in being evil. She was, she was my gateway to Yago. No, she's amazing. But you know that my executive producer at CBS Sunday Morning, I kid you not, who is a genius and a good friend and he's the part of that show. When we did the piece on Little House and Melissa Gilbert early in the pandemic, there was a clip, and it's the clip right where I think Laura pushes Nellie
down the hill.
In the wheelchair. Yes.
In the wheelchair. And he did not allow that in the piece. It's just too harrowing. And I thought, that's kind of cool. He did not allow it. It was cut from television.
Because it was too brutal, Allison.
Wow. No,
Now
he's the secret Nellie fan.
Yeah.
Well,
He deserved it.
It's the joy that she had in being so nasty that is what makes it so special. I think audiences feel like that Allison was somehow in on the joke. That she she was very comfortable in the joke, whereas Allison Balson, who played Nancy, and I know they've had Allison and Allison had lots of conversations about this tough spot she was in to come in and
she did great. She was so mentally ill. It was fantastic.
Brilliant child. She talked about it. She was like 11 and was just like how old when I started. She said, well, I didn't want to copy you. I grew up as a little girl watching the show. I know what you did. I watched it. And she said, I didn't want to copy you. So you kind of went for imperious and bitchy. I went for crazy. And I said, nailed it. Nailed it.
Well, you had a glint in your eye.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
For being evil, and I think that was inimitable. I also have to tell you that a weird thing happened. I don't know if it's ever happened, if you know of anyone else this has happened to. For a long time, I would switch in my head. I would forget. I would switch Nellie Olson with Nellie Forbush, the character in South Pacific.
South Pacific.
Wow. Well, that's interesting.
Oh, that's weird.
And I don't know, am I the only person that would do that?
No. Here, present. I did it too. I did South Pacific when I was a sophomore in high school, and I did that all the time. I just think if you're a bonnet head, you cannot escape the Nellie at all.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Nellie Olson would wash that man right out of her hair. But that's it.
See, this is what you do. That right there is what you do.
So happy.
Pamela, you've got this. Like, let's try and get to the where this all began.
Well, Mel, I'm endlessly, and Allison and Dean will tell you all week, I've been like, I don't understand his career because it's an incredible career, and I know that you started off, doing theater and musical theater, but then how did it branch into so many different amazing things? What was the launching point for your career, and when did you know, like, oh, this is what I do?
I think for me, the most important sort of turn in my career early on, after doing musical theater, going to New York and trying to, getting in lines out, and to wait early in the morning, just eat bars if I only had a brain. That was my up tempo. My ballad was from Bells Are Ringing Long Before I Knew You. But then a friend of mine helped create a show called Wishbone on PBS about a Jack Russell Terrier when his dream life becomes the heroes of classic novels. It was like an English, like an assignment from an English teacher on LSD. Right, it was just a crazy idea, and it was a success. And the show, I think, I had a small part in it, but I think it was a great success, and it taught me kind of how to take some of the greatest stories ever told and then distill them into half-hour versions as seen through the eyes of a dog. It was an extraordinary experience, and I actually was thinking about it at the beginning of this conversation because the American Library Association, again, that mafia of librarian, that because they believed in it. They were so impressed. And this was a TV show.
I remember
the TV show that they endorsed kind of the books that spun off of it, and it really helped get it into classrooms as a learning tool. But that's really how I learned how to write, I think, and I kind of went from there. But that was really formative for me working on Wishbone.
But then how did the historical aspect and then the CBS aspect of it come in? And it's just such a perfect mesh of everything that you do.
Because as I was working on Wishbone, I was living in a suburb of Dallas. And all you Dallasites out there, I don't mean this as a diss, living in the town of Plano, okay, which means flat in Spanish, okay? And I was in a Texas suburb, which, at least the section I was living in, was so kind of sterile and soulless. There was no sense that anyone had lived and died before me where I was. And I found it very unsettling. And I found, I didn't feel like I had, that there was a ground beneath my feet. It just all felt so ephemeral. And so I suddenly developed in my 20s this need to know, who had lived and died before me wherever I was. So I began obsessively looking at historic markers wherever I was. So I would drive, Ohio. It's crazy. It's like they have a really great State Historical Association. They've got these little brown signs all over the place. And when I drive through Ohio, as one does, I guess, I would just drive, pull over to the side and get out and start reading them. So I became very, very attentive to that. And then for some reason, I became interested in the presidents that you can't remember were actually president. The guys, Teddy Roosevelt, they got a lot of facial hair. A couple of them unfortunately were assassinated, and a lot of them actually were from Ohio. And so I started visiting the homes of these presidents because I was very interested in who worked there, the docents, a great NPR word, the docents who volunteered their time there. Because I'd grown up in the Washington, D.C. area. I'd been to Monticello. I'd been to Mount Vernon. You're sort of in awe before you walk in. But who goes to the Benjamin Harrison House?
Right.
Delaware Avenue in the old North Side section of Indianapolis. Who goes to the
who's visiting
Harding House?
Yeah,
right?
Martin Van Buren, right.
Like in old Kinder, New York, Martin Van Buren, right? And with his crazy whiskers, like those
with the mutton chops, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a character from the cast of Cats. I mean, who's that beautiful house, by the way? And so that got me sort of interested in sort of off-kilter kind of adjacent history.
But then that goes in, but I love how it sort of it skews into your theatrical background too, because, like, for example, last week you did a segment on CBS Sunday Morning on Bayork Lee, which theater people know who she is. She's a legend, but the world at large might not know who she is. And I love that you take these people who are really important culturally that other people might just not really know about or recognize how important what this person's contribution was.
So I want to use whatever capital I have to try to bring those people recognition, because not just because I think that they deserve it, but I think that the audience deserves to know who they are.
Yeah.
I'm also very interested in what I think of as sort of undervalued stocks, like people who actually will make an audience when they see them on TV go either, oh my God, I love Angie Dickinson. Where's she been? And like, and she's not selling anything. We're just having a conversation. Or, holy cow, Bayork Lee, what an amazing! Wow, this is incredible. She was 5 years old and she was in the original King and I, and then she's now 78. She's teaching people the turkey lurkey dance from Promises. So it's they're undervalued stocks.
Yeah. I love them. I'm inspired by all of that. I love what you do. Anyway, I'll stop gushing.
In the original company of Into the Woods, Merle Louise was a member of that company who was the original Baby June in Gypsy, which is and here in Into the Woods she was the voice of the giant and Jack's or the little old grandmother.
Yes, I never realized that was her, Dean.
And Merle Louise was Baby June in the original. I mean, it's just just sort of there are remarkable stories. I think in that community, you, because of the whole nature of what the work of the theater is, where you have a part, you take the part, you do the part, there is the possibility of that lifelong career, and it can be a very wide-ranging career. But you're not necessarily ever a household name doing that, but you can have a wonderful career doing that work.
It's so interesting that you're mentioning Merle Louise from the original cast of Gypsy, because I was just with June Squibb, who played Electra, one of the three strippers.
Yes.
In the original run of Gypsy with Ethel Merman.
Oh, my God.
And now at 94, she's the lead in a movie for the first time ever. And her work has never been better. And she had this movie, Thelma, which is the June Squibb. And she's fantastic in it. And she said to me, and this is, it all comes back to the prairie. She's from rural Illinois. And she's got that great Midwestern thing where she's not like brassy like a New Yorker. She's not syrupy like a deep Southerner. She's just kind of that great Midwest thing of like, well, I know what I do and I do it well. And I just sort of stick to it and I just keep doing it, working on it. And she says because of her age, she really, really is more willing to just kind of go for it because why not? And her work has never been better.
I saw ads for that. Oh my God, that woman, she's 94.
It just makes you so, we think about our culture and that we dismiss the people who are in maybe their second half of their life or the last quarter of their lives. We do dismiss them as a culture, and we don't, it's a shame, because that's where the wisdom is and that's where the groundedness is of who you are. And like you were saying before, you don't need to impress anyone, just...
Our cast, we have some Roctogenarians in our cast.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, exactly.
Dean, are you discussing your age? Because you did just write.
Well, I'm not. I'm 68, so Yeah, so
It just looks amazing.
So I'm I don't hide from that, and we do have well, look,
We do.
You are early in your 60s now yourself.
I'm 62, and I mean I'm heading out to P-Town to do 3 shows at the Red Room, and then I'm doing all the Prairie events, and then I'll be in San Francisco to Oasis. So I'm like blah 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 blah. And I started doing my one-woman show, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, and then created the book. That was well after 40. I also, after 40, went back to school, learned French, and started doing my French shows. So it's like, I'm like, gee, now I'm 60s. What am I going to do now? What language? And I said, our cast includes Charlotte Stewart, who was Miss Beadle at 83, Karen Grassley, 82, all of whom are still appearing at places, acting, doing stuff. And Bonnie Bartlett, Miss Grace Edwards, who just put a book out last year, is 95 and still makes personal appearances and has a book out.
And she's a pistol. You know, she is a very opinionated, strong-willed person.
The book's wild. She did interviews about the book, and it's all about like woo. So I mean, nobody in our cast stops. We're like, what's next? Yeah.
Allison, I'm going to lose points for this, but the name of the actress who played your mom is
Catherine McGregor.
Catherine McGregor.
Okay, so was she we're talking about these people who are sort of fonts of wisdom. Was she, and Melissa sort of said this to me, that she was really great and really generous.
She's bonkers, but oh my God, she did know everything, had been everywhere, had worked with everybody, had seen it all, and she did the acting tips. But I mean, she gave me books on meditation because she was going to the Vedanta ashram and to India, and I'm 15, and she's giving me, meditation, its methods, and the writings of Swami Vivekananda, and it's just like, what? And then you, of course, went to it because she was the font of acting advice, solicited analysis.
No, exactly. But she was. I think that was what I loved about Catherine, is that she was unabashedly passionate about the work that she was doing. She made no apologies for the fact that she was obsessed with the work that she did and doing it as well as she could do it, and doing it thoughtfully and intentionally. And she had no use for stardom. That wasn't what she was about. It was about craft for her. And she just brought all of that, and she was so much fun to be around. I think she was exactly like Mrs. Olsen. I know people disagree, but I because there's more to her than that, obviously, but she was very special.
She wasn't mean like Mrs. Olsen. She took in stray people and animals. I mean, she was like the opposite of that. But she was the opinionated. She used to take us kids to the movies, but it was like, Young Frankenstein, and we totally age inappropriate, and we couldn't get candy from the counter because it was bad for us, and she'd bring health food store treats, and they were awful.
There you go.
Yeah. Beet juice.
When you write, Mo, I'm curious, with your books, who is your audience? How do you see your audience, and how are you reaching those people?
Well, this isn't a dodge, but I'm more and more convinced that, when I'm able to, sometimes you're given at a show like CBS Sunday Morning, sometimes they need to fill a hole in the show. You're given an assignment they might not be interested in, and then it becomes my job to make myself interested in it. But when I'm given latitude, like in writing books and in my podcast, I think it's really important to tell a story that I'm genuinely interested in, because I'm convinced that if I'm interested in it, the audience is smart, has real horse sense, and can tell.
Yeah.
I remember for a while I was touring around campuses doing a PowerPoint slideshow of all the different presidential grave sites I've been and workers I met through that. And I can tell you that, sometimes going to Big Ten schools, being brought in by their student activities, committees, I always felt like a lot of these kids, if they knew what I was going to talk about beforehand, they wouldn't have shown up. And I was particularly kind of just proud that I kept them, and that they sort of left kind of sometimes scratching their heads, probably going like, I think, saying, wow, that was interesting.
That was cool.
I mean, so I do think of it in those terms, like, how can I make people interested in what I'm interested in? How can I, how can I affect them?
Well,
better.
I think you do so much of it with humor. I know, Allison is so plugged into her humor. I mean, the humor's serious business. I mean, where does that come from for both of you. I mean, this is a real thing, and it's a huge part of both of you and what you do.
I mean, absolutely. Well, it's a survival tool in a lot of ways, was for me, but it's true. Sometimes you can take really difficult topics and be allowed to speak about them. Starting in the mid-'80s or 90s, I got booked to speak about AIDS and HIV and AIDS prevention in places they weren't having other people because I was famous and I would make it funny. And they weren't going to sit still for other people to do that. So, yeah, I mean, that's a thing. You figured out at some point that doing it funny was the better way.
Well, and also, among other people, gay people love you.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
So
Icon.
That on you. And by the way,
why is that? What is the key to that?
I think it's because, and I haven't given this a lot of thought, but I know that I loved it. That immediately, it was like the radar, like in Lady and the Tramp when the dogs all hear the call. It was like, okay, Allison's on TV, like come over, like she's on TV. Alice, like
yay, bat signal. Thumbs up. Shaped like grillets.
It's sort of like in the 70s, and I love Carson, don't get me wrong, and I still watch on antenna TV, the old Carsons, but when Joan Rivers was on, early on, it was like, if you were a gay kid, it was like,
yeah.
You could see what jokes she was going to tell. So if it was a Nellie episode, that was really, really exciting. So I think it was that she was bold, she was out of the box, right? So she's different from the other people there. She's got a cutting sense of humor, a sense of irony.
You just do this all day. I'll just sit here and keep.
Which I think, when you feel like you're on the outside looking in, you're an observer, right? And so your irony tools are sharper. So I think that's why I think she sort of just drew you. And I think, like Dean, you were saying before, there was a sense that Allison was kind of winking while she was doing this. She wasn't in full method. Like, this wasn't like she was truly an evil person. There was a sass to it that was really exciting. And sass on the prairie. Like, if you're going to live in Walnut Grove and there's not going to be a piano bar, at least sit next to this girl.
Yes,
Primer.
Man, what?
Oh my God, I want a piano bar on the prairie called Sass on the Prairie. That's like
dull in Minnesota about as well.
I think it would probably be called Prairie Fire. But the other thing is, I do think that when Allison goes to P-Town, you have to please just ask at one point in pattern between your big numbers, right before the 10 o'clock number. You got to ask, like, how many of you guys used to conflate Nellie Olson and Ellie Forbush?
Yes, that's going on. Where's a pen? Yes, thank you. That's going in. Great. That is absolutely going in. Oh my God.
We're going to be back with more with Mo Rocca right after this.
Yeah.
All right, so this is where we're going to do our Patreon pitch.
Okay,
so let's come back, and we're going to come back. And then we're going to come back, and we're going to take us into this, Pamela.
Dean, what? Sorry, what am I taking us into?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're just coming back to B4. Sorry.
B4.
Yeah.
There we go. Got it. Okay.
Making notes.
Tell me when you're ready.
Go ahead. Anytime.
And okay. And we're back. Now, okay, Mo, let's talk about television and podcasting. How do you characterize the evolution of mass media?
Whoa, okay.
I know. Put on your Harvard cap for that one.
Harvard cap. Questions, Mo. Sorry. But things have changed and you're such a good observer because you observe everything. I'm just curious how you see the medium shifting.
We said there'd be a quiz. Shifting. There's a quiz, see?
Well, I can tell you how I experience these two things differently and why I was drawn to podcasts. I don't know if that is, if I do it an 8-minute feature on Sunday morning, that's wonderful and it can be very satisfying. But if I'm doing a 45-minute episode on, in fact, one that I'm particularly proud of was our Mobituary on Laura Branigan, because it's a very bittersweet story on the singer Laura Branigan, who died kind of under the radar. People didn't even realize she had died. And then, Gloria, that indestructible song, became the great theme for the St. Louis Blues comeback when they ended up winning the Stanley Cup for the first time in their 50-year history after coming from last place in the NHL. Once they adopted Gloria as their theme song, and fans thought that Laura Branigan might show up and sing. They didn't realize she'd been dead a long time.
Oh, man.
So that was the kind of story that I could tell in a podcast. But I don't want to get too wonky here, too much into how the sausage is made. I will say that a podcast, it is such fine, at least the kind of episodes we were doing is such fine work. It's like it's like stitching a wall-sized tapestry.
Yeah.
Just such fine work, because I don't want people to listen to a story and have to keep hitting the reverse 15-second button, the rewind button, more than a couple of times, because I think then they're just going to dump out at one point. There's too many other options. But I guess I just think overall, as things become more atomized, like everything has become so niche, broadcast. I mean, CBS Sunday Morning, I'm fortunate to be on a show that still does broadcast broadly, the point of broadcast. But, everybody's audience, like when you guys were on Little House, 40 million people were watching the Zippers.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, no one has those audiences. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what also, I just will interject with what's so great again about your podcast, Mobituaries, and your books, Roctogenarians and Mobituaries, and what you do on CBS Sunday Morning is, the second you think, is this going to get too academic? You put in that laughter, that comedy, where you're literally laughing, and you're so engaged from the very beginning. And that's why I love the podcast too, because you are engaged from some of the people I know, some of the people I've never heard of before, and I'm always learning and enjoying it the entire time.
Well, thank you. And can I just say that one of the things that I kind of look at everything as a balance of protein and carbs, right? So like when you're telling a story, the protein is the stuff that nourishes you and makes you feel like, wow, this is a really good story. It has real weight to it. But then you need like a little candy. You need a bit of a rush, like to keep things. So like in this book that I did, Roctogenarians, about people accomplishing great things late in life, there's a story on a woman who was a civil rights activist, Mary Church Terrell, who at the age of 86 was leading sit-ins at segregated Washington, D.C. lunch counters. That's a great story that fills you up. But then you need something to lighten things up. And so then we have Mr. Pickles, the Houston Zoo tortoise, who became a first-time father at the age of 90. Al Pacino looked like a kid. And so, but you kind of need sort of that balance, I think, And I also think, again, not to get to like we're in an English class here, I also feel like people aren't interested in topics. They're interested in people. So I'm Mobituary. So I wanted to do something on Reconstruction. I thought it's good. People are going to think, oh, God, am I being dragged back into class? It's like watching paint dry. But then I realized that the Black congressman of Reconstruction, there were a number of Black men who had 10 years before been enslaved, who then were walking the halls of Congress as elected officials. And I went, that's like crazy. That's like really dynamic and exciting and provocative. Yeah. And rather than we're going to talk about Reconstruction or period, we're going to talk about these guys, these superheroes.
How do you find your subjects? How did you come to that? You thought, I want to do something on Reconstruction, and then in your research, you just found these people?
I found somebody had said something. I had read something about the Black senator from Mississippi in the 1870s. I'm like, what? What is this?
Yeah.
Possible. Yeah.
It's wild.
Amazing. People always ask us about making Little House again, speaking about media. And I mean, what can a show, do you think as you look at the media landscape and you're inside it every day in a way that, that most people are not, can a show like Little House be made again? Could it be, is there synergy around? Can you get that big? Or, I mean, look, people make big shows, but we know there's an audience, but like, where do you, it's a huge investment.
And not necessarily a reboot, but like, another part of Laura's life, anything but kind of show.
Sure.
It's such a great question. I kind of feel like Laura's later life, and certainly her daughter Rose's life, and Rose wasn't instrumental, as we all know, in getting Laura Ingalls Wilder to publish those great books, which is a great gift to humanity. Rose's life is more like an FX series, I think.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
I think that
get Ryan Murphy now.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I once did a piece on CBS about tearjerkers, and I was talking with the producer Linda Obst about Terms of Endearment. I said, it's such a great movie. And I said, could it be made today? And she said, well, it would probably be from an independent studio, which is interesting to hear that a movie that great. So I don't know. With Little House on the Prairie, if you were smart, you'd go for it, right? And maybe it would be Netflix, and it would be like Bridgerton big, right?
Sure.
So I'm not sure what would have to change, because I swear to you, I went back and watched old episodes like The Wisdom of Solomon when I did with Todd Bridges, when I did the interview with Melissa Gilbert, and it does hold up.
Yeah.
And I also think it's sort of like, today it would be called, and I don't mean this in a snide way at all, like slow TV, like almost like Little House, like CBS Sunday Morning. There's Nat sound. They moment to hear, like, what are we doing now? We're not just filling every bit of silence.
Right.
Yes.
They're so smart to do that. So I do think people hunger for that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I wonder though, if a reboot is possible, would it be demanded of the reboot to be historically correct, like the book, you know, that sort of harsh, really harsh condition, as opposed to what Michael Landon did, which was prairie fantasy. I mean, it really was a fantastical version of the prairie. I don't know if people would accept a fantastical version of the prairie now. They might. Bridgerton's big.
Yeah, well, sure, true. I mean, of course, and there's all sorts of liberties which are really interesting and creative. All I know is that if there's a reboot, I need an episode that takes place in 1890, when they actually say, the U.S. Census Bureau says, okay, the frontier is closed. It's the whole
right.
There was a moment when they're like, the frontier is closed. I just love the idea of like a frontier closed sign, and a guy in a coonskin cap and a rifle showing up, and then walking away, just slinking off. I got your 5.
We'll be back with more with Mo Rocca right after this. When you visit Simi Valley, California, you are stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents. Explore beautiful wildflowers, take a walk through iconic Hollywood locations, and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout the summer, take the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary Tour at Big Sky Ranch. Less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios, Simi Valley has small-town charm with big-time history. Go to visitsimivalley.com for more information.
And we're so grateful to visitsimivalley.com for their commitment to present this Little House 50th Anniversary podcast. We also want to thank Cozy TV, Rodex, Modern Prairie, Price Board, City of Simi Valley, Adventist Health Simi Valley. Thanks, everyone, for your support of the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast. Mo, thank you so much for being with us. This has been truly thrilling and such an honor for you to be here. Really, thank you. Okay, Mo, we've got to ask you, will you tell us some of your favorite episodes from Little House on the Prairie?
Well, I think one would have to be the ice bath episode.
All right. Yes. Excellent.
I don't know the title of it, but I know that it's seared. It's seared in my memory.
Good. Yes. Good. Me too.
Right. I love the plague episode. I think it's a great episode. Fantastic episode. And I would say, I'm trying to think of what is Nellie at her most terrifying. What episode that would be? I think it will help with this.
Well, now, I mean, the bunny is going down the hill in the wheelchair. Pretending to be paralyzed, which is pretty bad.
The music box.
Music box, because I torture a stuttering girl, which nearly killed me to do it. And then the dream sequences where we have Laura in a dungeon and then hang her. And I'm the executioner in a hood. That one's pretty bad. Was there another one that's
Nellie Executioner?
Really? Nellie Executioner is pretty bad. Talking Machine. That was pretty terrible.
She's so horrible.
I record Laura talking about a boy and play it in school. I like that one because when Miss Beadle says, stop that, I turn the crank and I go, I can't. It's urgent. And I'm clearly just going, what? No, I can't.
And gleeful every step of the way. See, that's why it works.
Yeah, she's like Hannibal Lecter.
Just having such a good time doing that.
Yeah, you enjoy the kill.
Thank you for that. I was thinking it was going to be all
It's going to be all Nellie episodes.
But thank you for spreading the love around.
Like the ice bath, he appreciated the ice bath, and the plague is.
Yeah, you got Dean. You got a shout out. It's usually just bunny.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, and I think the plague was such an important episode during the pandemic because it did speak to all of this anxiety that we were. And quarantine was another episode that was
quarantine as well. Both plague and quarantine were remarkable in how they held up and how almost spooky they were watching.
And it blew people's minds in 2020 when they're watching and they go, there's an episode called Plague and an episode called Quarantine. They knew. How did they know? And it was kind of freaky. But
I was a dum-dum during that time because I showed my son who was, how long ago was COVID? 10 at the time. During COVID, the plague episode, thinking... This, we'll watch a Little House. Let's put on the plague episode.
Nice.
And it was the first time he connected the dots of what was actually going on with COVID, and that hadn't really sunk in until I showed him the plague. And it freaked him out. He didn't sleep that night. He had to sleep in my bed with me. It freaked him out so much that he wouldn't watch Little House on the Prairie anymore. I did the anti-Prairie episode.
You showed an episode.
Traumatized boy.
They die in that episode. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a bad move on my part. It's like, hey, we're in a plague. Here's a show about a plague. Let's watch. Bad mom move. Bad.
On that sad and revealing note, we're going to, Mo, we need to wrap this up with you. You have been so gracious with your time.
Thank you
so much for chatting with us.
No, I think the book. Yeah, living on a prairie. John Bon Jovi do something.
I know. Maybe he'll be a guest one day. We'll see.
Living on a prairie.
Everyone, get the book, Roctogenarians. It's awesome. Listen to his podcast, Mobituaries, and the book Mobituaries also. You will love it. Your kids will love it. Everyone will love it. It appeals to every sensibility, every age category. And thank you for all you do, Mo. Really, thank you so much.
I'm great. My thing to meet a bit.
And I had a feeling you had questions for Nellie and Almanzo too. So this is great.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much. And I'll bone up for the 60th anniversary.
Fantastic.
I'll leave that up.
I'm awesome. I'm there.
Any way you answer, Mo, it's always going to be entertaining.
Just Nellie. Just Nellie.
We thank you for that.
Okay. And I know everyone line in P-Town, yes.
That is a wrap for us. Sorry, we don't have any listener questions today, but we will be doing a lot of that on Patreon, and we'll be doing more in future episodes as well, so don't worry about that. If you want to see what we're all up to, go to our socials, Little House 50, and Little House 50 podcast, or our website, littlehouse50podcast.com, and join us next time. Bob, get the wig. Let's fly, everybody. Airplane arms.
To the airplane arms, Mo.
Mo's doing it too. Yes.